My guest today is Jam Supernova, one of Britain's most sought-after DJs in clubland, radio host of BBC One Extra, DIY Handbook Show, label owner, A&R manager and curator of New Sounds Club Night Future Bounce. With frequent tours across Europe with clubs and festivals, she has made her way to Australia, the Middle East and Asia. She has shared the stage with the likes of Lion Babe, Little Sims, Sasha Keyboard, Toddler T, DJ Semtex, Carla, Rome Fortune, and many more who invite her personally to open up for their shows. Her DJ sets and the sounds that she champions are from new forms of clubland, bass, future R&B, global house and garage. BBC One Extra, Europe's largest youth platform on the airwaves, where Jams has built her foundation, where she's established her voice as a broadcaster and as a DJ, and where you'll find her weekly delivering her message with documentaries and radio shows. A philanthropist, spiritual activist for youth and people of color in electronic music. Our discussion today on this episode is about daily habits and rituals, the importance of cultivating youth expression and culture, self-belief and self-certainty, and it's time for another DIY generation. Jam Supernova, welcome. So great to have you. What up?
That was a nice intro. Thank you very much, James. Appreciate
it. You're welcome. You're welcome.
Pleasure to connect with you.
Yes. And once again, it's great to see you again since we met last year in Sydney at the EMC, the Electronic Music Conference. Now, you've really pushed yourself at a young age. You pushed your comfort zones. You ignored others' opinions. You took matters into your own hands at such an early age and as part of your career. Where did that come from? Is that where did that drive? Where did you inherit that?
I think I have. Well, I guess like from a childhood, I think I had. Well, my parents used to be actors when I was younger. They met in drama school, and my mom, she got pregnant at 18, but my dad carried on acting. But she always stayed creative, and I think that their kind of hustle and kind of providing for us kind of gave me a drive. But also, I think the foundation that they gave to us, it was kind of like there is no such thing as can't, and that my mom would never let you. You weren't allowed to say can't. I can't do this or I can't do that. You just weren't allowed to say it in the house. And we were always kind of pushed academically, but more so like finding your own things that you're good at as well. So I played football from a young age with my brother from 6 to 16, and I always wanted to be better than him, even though he was naturally better than me, but he was 2 years older and stronger. But I always wanted to be better than him, and I think that competition sort of drove me initially. And I think I've got quite a competitive nature, even in school. You know, like in primary school, I wanted to be the smartest, you know, and even because I don't think that, I think what I've learned early on is that you might not be the smartest, but you can find ways to get there. You might not naturally be the smartest, so that person might have an advantage over you, or you know that thing didn't go so well, but there are always kind of ways to get better and get there. So I think just from an early age, really. That's the nature that I had.
And I mean, your folks, your heritage, Cuban, Jamaican, and it was that, as that mum and dad and like that cultural background that had a place as well in the home, and like, you know, all this festivities and all that sort of stuff. Like, did that have a big impact as well in your music career? And
I think musically, definitely, because we were exposed to so much different music, from obviously from reggae, but all the way through to rock music, to jazz music. My mum's mixed with Irish, but both my parents were born in Britain, and they were the first generation of their parents to be born, or first generation of the family, sorry, to be born in Britain. And so they had a very British upbringing as well. So I kind of feel like what my upbringing was very much like a blend of cultures.
Yep. And I guess that would have had and like that kind of combination of being in, with all different sort of cultures is exposed you to culture that you know and that importance of embracing cultures and all that, you know.
Yeah, definitely. Because I think that even though you might be born in Britain and, you know, you speak with a British accent, you know, there's definitely that kind of remembering of where you're from and being respectful of the other influences that you have as well, but then also being proud to be sort of where you are. And I kind of think that like it just felt like very normal to have such a blended family, I think. And to have quite a blended outlook and to be quite outspoken with things. Like I think like even like dinner table, you know, especially from more so from my mom's side, you know, dinner tables are for debates and things like that.
And it seems like because of, you know, the work that you're doing, it just seems like an extension from some, you know, other kind of influences from a young age. Like your projects, you know, they're very focused around youth culture, expression, and of course, the people of color in electronic music, pushing boundaries. You know, the whole DIY. This is important to you, and I love this. Why, you know, that's you. I know that's what motivates you, and that's the big why. And you know, it comes through your values and your mission. You can see that, and of course, daily structure. You really lead by example, and I admire that. And I'm a big believer of personal development myself, and that's part of this whole podcast is really just exploring about what people do musically, but speaking to people in music and learning about these kind of rituals and habits. And so spiritual practice, is that something you also practice as well? And I mean, what does a morning routine look like for you now?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's sort of shifted over the years, but kind of, I guess spiritually, I definitely kind of, I've never been religious and not grown up to be religious, but my dad actually became a Jehovah's Witness when I was 5, when my parents are separated. So there was that on that side, but it was never something that I resonated with. And quite early on, I kind of said to him, it's not really for me. But in terms of like spirituality, I think I might have read The Secret when I was like 19.
Right.
And then that kind of really kind of shifted my way of thinking. A friend actually had read it and had told me about it. And then I read that at 19 and kind of really started to put that into, I guess, you know, not so much the materialistic side of things, but wanting material things, but the kind of the sort of mindset to get what you want. I definitely put that into practice. And for me, I think the biggest thing like that I sort of really unlocked like in my early 20s was like gratitude and being thankful. So I'd always write like, or, you know, even if I didn't write it physically, I'd always be thinking about like what I'm grateful for, or even down to like little things could be as simple as like just being awake today, or having a flat that I can live in, or things like that. So I think that's definitely been a good way for me to kind of manage my mindset and going back to those basics of just kind of gratitude and you know, really trying to understand like the mental blocks that we have and trying to like undo that. So I've got like a whole bookshelf of self-help books, you know. I kind of flip between one book, one well, not 1 month, but, you know, in an ideal world, 1 month reading fiction, 1 month reading like a self-help book.
Right.
But in terms of like morning rituals, so yeah, they definitely like sort of, I guess, shifted when I lived on my own. And I was like really like striving to get on the BBC and have a show. I would wake up, I would like meditate, I would look at my mood board, and I'd like set my lists out for the day. Yeah. Obviously, when you have a partner that lives with you, then, you know, your routine kind of shifts slightly and you're more accommodating of who you're around. But right now, I'd probably say that my morning routine, my biggest challenge the last couple of years has actually been getting up, because before I would get up, I was very much sort of like working to my own drum. So I'd only wake up when I had to like leave the house type thing. So I'd always be like, right, I've got a meeting at 11. That means if I wake up at 9, then I can leave by 10. And that is, if I had a meeting at 1, then I wake up at 11, leave by 12, you know? And then I kind of realized, like, I'm not really in control of my day. I'm just playing catch up all the time. So now I try and get up. I try and be up by 8 at least. Like that, I need to be up by 8.
A bit more discipline now.
Yeah, a bit more discipline, regardless of what's going on. Even on a weekend, I might not get out of bed, but being up is the main thing. And then I guess every day is different depending on what I have on that day, because kind of all my days are allocated to different parts of the work that I do. But the first thing I'll do is have a drink and then take my dog for a walk. So he gets the walk quite earlier on, and then then coming and sitting down to do work. Or recently I've been kind of actually trying to get a workout in earlier. Yep.
I noticed you're posting a lot of your workouts on Instagram. Yeah, I saw one with your mum recently.
But yeah, for me, actually, I kind of think like my optimum is to get the workout done earlier, because then I can comfortably sit or
sets a nice tone, doesn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, and then I can just sit and work for like 8 hours, or or really sort of dedicate my mind then to the task ahead. But yeah, it definitely differs. It's kind of hard to remember now, like pre-lockdown, how it would work. But yeah, every day is different. So I guess I'll talk you through the days of my week. Maybe that would be a bit more helpful. So like pre-lockdown, Monday, up at 8, and I work till 11. And then I have a personal training session at midday. And then I go to Selector Radio, which is the global radio show that I do for the British Council. And I record that show. And then on a Tuesday, again, up by 8, then I might kind of like work from home for a while. And then I go to the BBC and I do my One Extra show there. And then a Wednesday, I need to go to RCA, which is a label part of Sony. So I consult with them on a Wednesday. So I've been doing that for about 3 years, something like that. And then Thursdays and Fridays are kind of the days that I start running out of steam a little bit, because I've had such regimented, 3 days of quite running around, finishing things, getting things ready for the show. So then normally Thursdays and Fridays, I am a bit slower, but it's more dedicated to the DJ and stuff or my label. So if I have a gig coming up that weekend, I'll be working stuff out for that. Or if I've got label stuff or admin stuff to do, sort of Thursdays and Fridays, it's a slower pace, but that's kind of what those days are dedicated to.
Yeah, well, and then, sorry, you were saying?
And then, weekends gigging, if I'm gigging, or, sometimes I try and get ahead of myself for the week by planning the shows.
Yeah. So it seems now you've developed more of a disciplined timetable to help facilitate and balance your work and your personal kind of well-being, so that you can have that sustainability and have that drive and keep moving forward and keep focused on all these, because you've got a lot of stuff going on, and it's I think it's great. And you mentioned obviously the gratitude, I find that so important, especially today where we're just being bombarded with so much sort of fear and things, and we tend to start looking on the other, looking at life for the half glass full. So I think, you mentioned quarterly reviews as well, like that. Is that something also that you kind of use to kind of reflect on what's happened over the last, say, quarter and make sure that you're keeping on target? And is that also very important?
Yeah. Yeah, I feel for me, I mean, it's something that you have to kind of remember to do, is kind of like looking back. But I'll always start before even when the year's about to start, I'll always kind of look back on the last year and kind of see what I've achieved and the things that I'm proud of and things like that before I even write the list for the year going ahead. And then I kind of try and do that quarterly. So like breaking down like what are my aims for the next quarter. Because I think if you try and do like a year to view, you can write it all out, but then it looks like a quite overwhelming list. And I think one thing I've definitely learned, over the last couple of years is like not all plates can spin at the same time.
Yeah.
So, it's impossible for everything to be going at 100%. So, some parts of the year, like maybe because there's less gigs, January to March or April, that really is a time to really sort of knuckle down and focus on the label, or focus on creating some of the ideas that I might not have time for later down the line in summer, let's say. And maybe summer, we try and not put that many releases out because I know I'm going to be gigging and playing festivals, and that's going to take up the lion's share of my time. But I definitely think the reflection is really important. And I think breaking it down into quarters and being like, right, for the next 4 months, what are my main targets? What am I trying to achieve? Who do I want to meet with? What do I want to get out of the next 4 months? And then kind of at the end of the 4 months, looking back and then being like, did I do that? Am I going to carry it over?
Yeah.
Am I proud of this? Or, I did do it. I didn't even realize I did it. I forgot I wrote that down. Things like that. And I recently started working, it's been about a year now, with a life coach.
Awesome.
Because I think I started like 2019 thinking, do you know what? It's the year to like outsource. So I got like a personal trainer and I got a life coach. And I think those two things have been really quite key in setting habits, in sticking to habits and having accountability. So like with the personal trainer, you have accountability in getting your fitness in, staying on target, making sure you eat well, and just having someone to kind of keep you going, and to someone to monitor your progress, because every month you might do a weigh-in, or every month you might hit a new personal best. And I think I kind of work well with metrics in that way.
Yeah.
And numbers. I'm quite a visual person. And then in terms of sorry, I had to turn my thing off. And then in terms of the life coach, she really, really focuses kind of on reflection. Sometimes I just want to get in there and talk about like what I'm going to do next and what I want to happen. And she's like, first, let's talk about the week. How was your week last week? How was that get? And I can feel myself actually sometimes getting a little bit frustrated, because I'm like, I just want to talk about what's going on. And she really forces me like to slow down. I can feel like it bubbling inside. Like, no, last week was last week. I just want to talk about what's happening next. And she'll be like, no, let's
help you get a bit more present, right?
yeah, she really does. So let's talk about that. And then really forces you to like, how was that gig? What was that about that gig? How did that gig make you feel? How did that what about that meet? How, talk me through what happened. And it kind of really helps you like process things.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that reflection is something that it's so easy to be too busy to reflect, but I think it is really important, because I think we underestimate, like, time moves so fast. You do underestimate, like, okay, you might not have like achieved that big goal, but you've definitely taken some steps to get there. Or maybe that goal, maybe on reflection, you realize that you don't actually want that anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. And I guess that approach of sort of working in more bite size rather than like trying to do too much at once, and working more on a more smaller scale is a great approach. Tell me, what self-belief and self-certainty. I mean, what are the sort of things that you do to kind of like stay in that mindset? Because obviously we always have that little voice in our heads that try to like keep us at bay or keep us in a comfort zone. How do you overcome that? Like, how do you stay on top of that?
Yeah, I think sometimes like there's definitely been points when that little voice has felt like really loud and just really critical and really like overbearing in some ways. Like definitely I could pinpoint like last year before working with the life coach actually. And that's kind of what led me to do it, because I kind of had kind of felt like I plateaued a little bit in kind of where I was at, but also not knowing what I wanted next. And that's kind of when I started to hear that voice like rearing again, well, you're shit, and well, you've had your chance now, and it's not gonna get much better than this, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Kind of really like overtly critical, and it just started to like, and it would sort of like manifest not just in like the career, but then just how I thought about myself as a person, and then the way that I looked, and it just actually got to a point that I was just tired. Like I just got bored of it. Like I just felt like I just got to a point I was just like bored, and I think that it's also because you can't be positive all the time. And I think that, we get sent a lot of like positivity porn so much on Instagram, and how even in some of the self-help books, you're not really allowed to be down or allowed to be sad about things. But actually, my aunt actually is really, really wise. She's like a kind of witchy Bruja vibe. Like, she's a really wise woman, and she's always talks about like feelings as fleeting, but feelings like letting your feelings pass you by, but like looking at them and being like, oh, why did, maybe dig a little bit deeper. Why am I feeling sad? And kind of delving into it rather than trying to resist it.
Yes.
So I think that, last year, then I just kind of got to a point, like I was aware of where I was at. I was aware that it was quite a shitty place, like mentally to be. And then I had a choice. Am I going to wallow in it and continue to, because I've been wallowing, or am I going to actively like try and seek help, I guess, in a sense.
Yeah.
That was kind of at that point. But I guess like the self-belief thing also, I think that I can always go back to. I think that like getting the show on 1Xtra, I guess if you talk to like the average person that doesn't work in the music industry, they would say that you must have been very lucky to get that show. It comes down to luck, or it's one in 1,000 or 1 in 100,000 chances that you might be able to get an opportunity like that. But it didn't come easily. It wasn't like I left college and then I got this show. It took 5 years of like hustling, and 5 years of people telling me no, and people telling me that I'm not good enough, and 5 years of even my mom saying maybe you might want to think about doing something else, maybe, has it happened by now, or like even friends that worked in the building being like, yeah, I just don't really see it happening for you. I'm really sorry, but and still being able to like pick yourself up every time you had that no, and then eventually get something. So I know from 18 to 24, that was my one goal. And it took me, 5 to 6 years, and I got it. So now I kind of really don't believe that there's anything that's out of my reach.
Yeah.
And I kind of will always go back to that. Like, I know it might take 6 years, it might take 10 years, it might take 60 years, but I do know somewhere I will get it.
Yeah. Yeah. And you mentioned before about The Secret, and I find that what a lot of people took from that, and I guess it didn't really delve into it a lot, but the book was kind of pushing that idea that God or the universe is some kind of vending machine, and not, because it's clearly, there's nothing absolutely. I understand the whole concept of manifestation, but you got to put the work in, and clearly you've done that. And
and I think you need to be ready for it as well.
Yeah.
And I do think it was to go back to like that spiritual, wherever your belief, if you're not ready for it, you won't get it.
Yeah.
And sometimes we think we're ready for things. So realistically, if I'd have got my show at 21 when I had planned to have got it, I wasn't mentally ready. I wasn't anywhere near ready for something like that, or I didn't even know who I was. So when I did get it, it came at just the right time. It came at the most perfect time ever. Do you feel
like you had to go through go through the resistance and the stories and the things first, so that you could be completely aligned with what you're trying to create? Like that. So like you said, being ready for it. What did that mean? Like, what does that look like to be to be ready, meaning that you'd had to be fully aligned with it. So, and so you had to overcome certain parts first to get to that place. Would that be?
Yeah. I think that's fair to say, like kind of, being aligned with it, but then also kind of really being in tune with yourself and what you're creating and what your output is. Because even, when I walked into that building, I just wanted to be a presenter.
Yeah.
I didn't know what kind of presenter. I didn't know, I knew I loved music, but everybody loves music, And every year they would say no. Then I realized, like, oh, actually, I don't think I want to be a daytime presenter. Actually, I think I'm specialist. Oh, but this is what I think my specialism is.
To get to that,
start to define a little bit more. So had I have walked in and got that show at 21, then I would be a daytime presenter and probably living that kind of life. But would it really have served me when actually I started to get to know that's not really my personality, and there's aspects of that I'm not comfortable with or I can't be asked with. But for me, it's always about music. But what sort of music? Is it about delving back, or is it about going forward? so really allowed me to know exactly like who I am, and then to have, I guess, as well, like to build a strong brand.
Yeah. Well, it seems that like everything that you're doing now, as a broadcaster and the projects is aligned with your mission and your values, and it sounds like that was what those 6 years were discovering, trying to find that purpose, and rather than just being a presenter or just being, but the why, and defining the why, and finding your purpose in music. And I mean, where did the youth culture part, like getting involved with youth? Obviously, you're still a young person yourself, but where did that is that also part of that 6-year journey? Like saying, actually, I want to be a voice for the youth, and show that, be an expression for that. Is that part of that?
I think it's kind of almost coming from, I guess, like the sort of background that I've come from and the sort of schools that I've gone to, and kind of really, like, I guess, understanding like the system isn't fair, and have many different friends from kind of really like really different spectrums of the way that they've grown up. But then I from like, how old was I? From 15, I started working with kids. So I used to work in a youth theatre, like I was like an usher for children's plays and stuff like that. And then I used to teach football to kids. And then before I started working at the BBC, so between 18 and 20, I used to be a teaching assistant. So I was working in schools, and I'd be like a supply teacher. So I kind of always kind of had that, I guess, I didn't want to be a teacher, but I had that care towards younger people, and kind of really wanted to, I guess, invest in the next generation in a sense. And then I think by having a platform, I think there's no point in having a platform if you can't put people on. And there's so many things that young people go through, and it's, and so many things that they have to overcome, or, the playing field isn't level. So kind of when I started the DIY Generation feature, which was I did it on 1Xtra for 3 years. It was like a kind of podcast style interview where we speak to like young entrepreneurs and creatives. And I kind of started it because they had asked me, I was doing a daytime show to begin with. They had asked me to come up with like a lifestyle piece that they wanted, because they just lost a presenter that was doing fashion. But I was like, I'm not really a fashion person. I kind of went back to all the things that I kind of care about and want to advocate. And I used to spend a lot of time on Instagram, like in the early days, watching like all the young entrepreneurs start doing really exciting things. It became like a platform to showcase what was happening. But for me, really, what it was about was showcasing people of color and women as entrepreneurs and as business people, because all of the other platforms that were doing things like that, they were all showing just privileged people that happened to be white that were doing those things.
Right. Who's that?
My little puppy. Yeah.
So yeah. Hello. Oh, gorgeous.
Yeah. So so I kind of think it's something that has always been there in me, but then having a platform to share it is kind of what takes it to that next level.
Yeah, and you're definitely using your this platform that you've got to really push your message and push this now. And I think it's a great thing. I think you're doing some great stuff there. And building your own community, serving people, delivering really good content seems like a common approach. Especially now, a lot of people are sort of realizing that this is a time to do this as well. Would you say you're prepared now for this next DIY chapter in history? Because I mean, you could say the conception of Jam Supernova was during the last recession, like almost 10 years ago, right? So you could say now, like, you've gone through the trenches already, and you were part of that that generation, that DIY generation that emerged from that period. What would be your advice now for this next generation facing these challenges for the first time?
Yeah, I mean, I'm always quite inspired by the next generation, to be honest, because they seem so much fearless, and so much more outspoken. Because even though I might have had like a DIY aspect, I still was quite a people pleaser or a institute pleaser, and I think that they are kind of going against that. They understand how to work with brands, but also to get what they need out of it. They understand how to work with corporations, but to make sure that it sort of benefits them. But I think I kind of feel like what you do start to notice now, what I am noticing now though with the next generation that's coming through, and maybe it was the same when I was coming through, but I guess it's like the disparity of who's coming through, because it's like, okay, the doors are more open for people of color, but then they're still less open for someone from a poorer background. And I feel like, that those are the kind of challenges that it's not as simple as, well, just pull up your bootstraps and just work hard and just put yourself out there,
Yeah.
Because that doesn't really serve people that can't have the privilege to be able to think like that, because they're so busy just trying to live day to day, paycheck to paycheck. But I think, if anything, that what's happening right now in the world right now is that the playing field is level in so many different disciplines, especially sort of in the creative world, for artists, for DJs, for illustrators, for photographers, like everything's so still that it's kind of what you do now in this moment, and the sort of things that you create and the communities that you create just from your phone or just from your living room or just, using the technology that's there, is kind of what is going to serve you when we come out of this.
Yeah.
I really feel like it doesn't matter if you've got 100,000 followers or 10,000 followers. Even like looking at, there's a rapper in the UK called Swarms, and he, you had Tory Lanez, the hip hop guy, doing his quarantine radio. So he would do it on IGTV, and then he would get girls to come on and twerk, and his following, the way that his following really went up. He went from being like a kind of, I guess, like a B-list rapper to being someone that everyone's talking about. Whether that translates back to the sales in his music is a whole other story. But I think then there's a guy in the UK called Swarms, and I'd only ever seen his name as a feature, but he started doing something similar and went from like 100,000 followers to 600,000 followers within the last 4 weeks.
Damn.
So, yeah, and so if you're kind of looking at those metrics, it's kind of really interesting to see then what will happen when this is up. So I kind of feel like there's a captive audience out there right now whilst everyone's home that you can be talking to. And I've kind of really been thinking, actually, now looking at the people that are doing well in these times, or looking at some of in a more electronic sense or the more DJ sense, some of the people that are really, I guess, like thriving in these times seem to be the older DJs. Couple spring to mind. There's a guy called Spoon. Yeah, yourself, James. Yourself, yeah. But Spoonie, who does.
I love Spoonie. Yeah.
Yeah, he does Spoonie's house. I saw EZ, obviously, who did his 24 hour. And then you've got there's a drum and bass DJ, Bailey. He did, he's doing some incredible streams that people are watching. And why I think that those guys are excelling right now is because they clocked away to talk.
There you are. Yep.
Yeah, they clocked away before all this to directly speak to their audience.
Yeah.
So they've had those ups and downs in their career, when 1 minute they're the top person getting paid this much to do 1,000 gigs, and then the next minute you're nobody. And then you have another rise, and then you're nobody again, So I think that those, Giles Peterson is actually another one, not necessarily in this period, but in terms of being able to create a platform to talk directly to his audience. So these people have been like, right, okay, I've been on top, I've been below, and every time I'm on top is because I'm on someone else's platform. How about if I was to start my own platform to talk directly to my audience? So in the last couple of years, whilst the average person might not have known that they've been doing these weekly streams or doing these shows that directly go straight to the people that want to listen to it, So now, in a time where everyone's looking for things to watch, your friend might be like, oh, yeah, I used to watch Spoonie's thing. Oh, we're still doing it. So, more and more people are watching it. And I think that's something that I've been thinking a lot about now. It's like, okay, let's say if I was, let's say I wasn't on One Extra, or let's say I wasn't being booked for any gigs.
Yeah.
How am I still going to get my content out and build an audience? That's kind of really what I should be thinking about now. Yeah. Hoping those things don't happen. But, that doesn't mean that you stop because you haven't got that platform anymore. Like, I really kind of want people that come on my page to be able to get your mixes or get your content here or get that and be able to like have that direct relationship kind of, fan to artist sort of thing.
Yeah. I by no means do I compare myself to Spoonie on these guys, but yeah, even this podcast itself was on the cards just before, and so I was very lucky that I pulled the trigger just before things went, and I had already sort of like put together a forecast of what I wanted to do, and so it's quite fitting, and the timing has just been great because I'm able to reach out to a lot of people, it's been such a great experience. What else? You mentioned dog training. Just on something fun and interesting. Tell me a bit about your dog training passion there.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't say it's a passion, more of a necessity. I've never actually been a dog person. Like, I would never be the kind of person to touch anyone else's dog or anything like that. But I think last year, me and my partner started talking about it, like off the cuff. Maybe we should get a dog type thing. But just, he'd grown up with dogs, but just off the cuff. And I was kind of like, yeah, maybe. We're both in our career now where we have the luxury of, flexibility, should I say. And then my mom, I kind of broached it to my mom, and she was like, yeah, I'd actually be really up for like sharing a dog with you type thing. If you ever needed someone to look after it or have it for the weekend. So I was like, oh, okay, this seems like, why not? Then let's just do it. So we basically went to Ghana, decided we were going to do it. And then within 4 weeks of getting back, we had a puppy. It was really exciting. And then, so then it's been a kind of different addition to my life and my habits and, teaching a puppy things and, meeting people outside of my world that I would never have even probably come into contact with ever. So we've been kind of doing a lot of training with him to try and get him to be disciplined.
So it's opened up another sort of outlet for you, it seems. Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, do you know? I think it's been I think it's just been a really nice way to be present because dogs are just so in the moment. And, I don't really want a child right now. And I don't want a child right now. But it's a nice way to kind of... I was
just going to ask you that. Yeah, I was just going to say, is this like a segue, is it?
It's bought me some time. But it's fun. It's nice learning some new tricks. And like I said, I never had a dog before, so I have no idea about dogs or watching loads of YouTube stuff. And everyone has their own personalities. Every dog has their own personalities and everyone has their own way that they want to raise their dog. Because we met this guy in the park the other day and he was like, oh, you've got a wild one there. He's a bit hyper, isn't he? And I was like, yeah, he is. And he was like, yeah, I'm a dog had in the last 6 years, fully qualified, you've got to be in charge. Don't let the dog lead you. And like watching him with his dog. But then we were kind of like, yeah, his dog's like really obedient and stuff, but we don't want a dog that's got no character. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like finding that happy balance of having like a disciplined dog, but a dog with a little bit of like pizzazz,
Awesome. Well, look, why don't you tell the listeners where we can find you, like the websites and links and where tell the listeners where we can hear you weekly and what. And the projects that you've got going at the moment, tell us.
Yeah. So radio-wise, you can catch me on One Extra. At the moment, it's every Tuesday from 7 p.m, but post-lockdown, we'll go back to being at 9 p.m. But to be honest, just catch up on the BBC Sounds app. You can listen like anytime. Once the shows drop, they live on the app for 4 weeks, and you can just listen back whenever. It's sort of at your convenience.
Yep.
DJ wise, so I do these monthly mixes called Club Jams.
Yep.
And it kind of started off because with my DJ career, we hadn't really touched on it in a sense, but with what I was doing on radio is such a different way to how I actually DJ. So when I DJ out, it's really different. And that's just because I have different passions. We're multifaceted people. And, for the one I DJ out, I want to play club records. I want to play UK club music. I want to play electronic music. But on the radio, it's we play a little bit of that, but it's definitely more, I guess, like soulful leaning. And so sometimes it would be like, I guess my DJ career is taken slower to build than say my radio, because the radio is kind of does what it says on the tin, whereas the DJing, I've kind of really had to build myself as a DJ away from radio.
Right.
So some people might just know me to see me on a lineup, but they probably don't listen to the show. It's kind of serving different audiences.
Right.
So it's taken a bit of a slower route, but I still feel confident in the choice that I made and sort of separating the two out. And now the worlds do kind of combine a little bit, but with the mix series that I do, it's called Club Jams. It does what it says on the tin. It's what you would get, what you would hear me playing in the club. So we drop them once a month. We're on our 6th month now, which is exciting. And it kind of just goes back to like that consistency. So we built up quite a nice little following for it now.
And where can we hear that? Where can we hear?
Oh, you can check it out on Mixcloud or SoundCloud. Jam Supernova.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'm intrigued to see, just keep on going and see what happens with it. Because I kind of got the idea from, Hannah Wants has been doing her mix series for like the last decade or something. And it kind of, again, it's that way of talking directly to your audience. And then the projects that I've got on the go at the moment. So the label kind of is really quite taking up most of my time at the moment. So we have quite a few exciting releases coming out this year. The label's called Future Bounce. So I've just launched like a club release series with the label, again, kind of trying to build the worlds together again of what I play on radio and then what I play in the club. So I'm going to be dropping a release a month from a producer that I play out. And it'll be a double A side. We've got a release that's just come out today, actually. And it's, just straight up club music, more
Awesome.
Geared towards Bandcamp. We're on Bandcamp, just Future Bounce. And then we've got some longer term projects that we're developing. There's a guy from New Jersey called Architect who makes like alternative R&B. Got some features for that. I just signed a girl called Solar who's like really alternative, soulful, kind of Twigs-like, FKA Twigs-like.
Yeah, wow.
That'll be later in the year as well. So yeah, loads of Future Bounce releases coming out this year, which is
so exciting. Awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, well, Jam Supernova, thank you so much, Jams. It's so great to have you here. And so please leave comments and feedback if someone wants to reach out to you, they want to share some music with you. Is there any URLs or website or an email address?
Yes. So on my Twitter,
yep.
There's actually a link on my Twitter where you can send music to me. And it basically works in a similar way to WeTransfer. You can just kind of upload the files there and then send music over. But if you want to email it, it's just music4jamsupernova@gmail.com.
Okay. Excellent. Alrighty. Well, that's it. That's our Electronic Music Man with today's special guest, Jam Supernova. Thank you again. Head over to jameslocksmith.net to sign up for the newsletter, find out about more episodes that are coming up. And of course, if you want to chat with me about any consultation, you need some help in the electronic music industry, any details with some personal growth, I can offer a 15 to 30 minute free consultation. Just hit me up at info@jameslocksmith.net. Send me your feedback. Love to hear from you. That's Electronic Music Man signing off. Thank you. Bye.
Perfect. Thank you so much, James.